Today, we're jumping straight into a classic fable to really analyze the true nature of power, persuasion, and the tactics we use to get our way. Because, this isn't just some simple bedtime story about the weather. It's actually a profound look at how we influence others. We're going to break down a pretty intense disagreement between two natural phenomena and see exactly what their conflict can teach us about our own strategies for problem solving. So to kick things off, I want you to ask yourself this question. If you absolutely need to change someone's behavior, is it better to use brute force or gentle warmth? I mean, when we hit an obstacle or deal with a stubborn person, our very first instinct is usually just to push harder, right? But does pushing harder actually work, or does it just create a whole lot more resistance? Let's see how the forces of nature handled this exact dilemma.
Phase 1. The ultimate power contest.
Okay, so this brilliantly illustrates their bragging match. You've got the wind boasting about highly visible, destructive actions, literally blowing trees to the ground, pushing massive ships across the ocean, and whipping up these chaotic hurricanes and tornadoes. But then the sun replies with a totally different kind of extreme power, silently melting all the snow on mountains, completely drying up entire lakes, and getting a sidewalk so intensely hot that it literally cooks an egg. It's this perfect contrast, right? Kinetic energy versus radiant energy.
Well, just then, the perfect opportunity for a test presents itself. They spot this unsuspecting man walking along the road wearing a heavy winter jacket. So the wind proposes a contest to settle their debate once and for all. Whoever can remove the man's jacket first is the true winner, the most powerful of them all. The sun quickly agrees to the terms, and boom, our cosmic experiment officially begins.
Phase 2. The wind's brute force. The wind goes first, and he methodically escalates his attack. He doesn't hold back at all. He starts by blowing a really sharp gust of cold wind directly at the guy. And when that doesn't yield immediate results, it starts to rain. The wind blows even harder, dropping the temperature until that rain physically turns into snow. Finally, he just unleashes his absolute strongest gust, trying to literally rip the coat right off the poor guy. It's just a snowy tempest of pure aggression. But look at the man's reaction to that initial cold gust. Does he take off his coat? Absolutely not. No way. He simply shivers, zips his jacket up tightly, and goes, "Brr, what a cold and windy day." The wind's aggressive action immediately provoked a defensive reaction. By applying all that force, the wind inadvertently made the man hold on to his jacket even more securely. So the wind doubles down by throwing a massive snowy tantrum. As the rain turns to snow and the wind howls even harder, the man's defenses only increase. He doesn't surrender to the elements. He adapts to protect himself. He just reaches back and pulls his hood tightly over his head. The harder the wind pushes, the more fortified the man becomes against him. What's really hilarious here is the man's perfectly deadpan reaction. As he's being battered by this highly targeted weather anomaly, he casually comments, "Well, look at that. It's snowing. Snow wasn't in the weather forecast today." He has absolutely no clue he's the subject of a cosmic power struggle. He just accepts the harsh conditions and continues to bundle up against them. And here we reach the climax of the wind's attempt. Against the wind's absolute strongest, most aggressive attack yet, the man's jacket stays firmly on. In fact, the man takes his defense to the absolute maximum level, zipping the jacket even higher to completely cover his nose. The wind has exerted all of his formidable power, and the only result is that the jacket is now way more securely attached to the man than when the contest even began. And this is the breaking point for the wind. Defeated by a guy who casually calls a targeted hurricane a bit fresh and just assumes a winter storm is rolling in, the exhausted wind realizes his strategy has completely failed. He frustratedly yells, "Gah! This is impossible!" And he finally stops blowing. Brute force has officially lost this round.
Phase 3. The sun's gentle warmth.
The sun steps up to the plate with a simple, confident declaration. My turn. There's no huffing or puffing here, no grand displays of chaotic energy, just a quiet, calm confidence in a completely alternative approach to problem solving. The sun is about to show us the power of altering the environment rather than directly attacking the subject. Notice how the sun's approach is incredibly gradual and gentle, methodically transitioning the environment. First, she shines just enough to stop the freezing snow. Then, she gently pulls the clouds apart, shining down to create this beautiful spring day. Finally, with just a subtle gesture of wiggling her fingers, she steadily increases the ambient temperature. It's really a masterclass in progressive environmental influence. And the immediate result of this gentle atmospheric shift is that the man voluntarily relaxes his defenses. As soon as the snow stops, the hood is unzipped. As the clouds part and the spring sun shines down, he unzips the main jacket. Nobody is forcing him to do this. The environment simply no longer requires him to be guarded. He is responding totally naturally to the warmth.
The man simply marvels at the bizarre, rapid climate changes. "Wow," he says, "the weather sure is strange around here." He's relaxed, he's comfortable, and he is actively undoing the very defenses that the wind had fought so incredibly hard to penetrate. So, the crucial turning point is when the sun gently dials up the temperature until the man's own physiological response takes over. The sun wiggles her fingers, and suddenly that pleasant spring day transforms. The man notes the strange weather again, realizing it now feels like the middle of summer. The heat rises, and he begins to visibly sweat. The internal motivation to remove the jacket has now been firmly established. And here is the definitive result. Overcome by the summer heat, the man exclaims, "Goodness me, it's so hot!" He entirely removes his winter jacket. But he doesn't just take the jacket off. The warm sun is so inviting that he actually lies down on the grass for a peaceful nap. The sun hasn't just won the contest. She has completely changed the man's state of being from defensive and shivering to completely relaxed and resting.
Phase 4. The moral of the tale. The sun, beaming with success, declares a definitive victory over the wind with a simple, "I win." And she absolutely did. She accomplished the exact goal the wind failed at, and she did it without applying a single ounce of aggressive physical pressure. She won by changing the conditions so that the man simply chose to remove the jacket himself. Which brilliantly illustrates the core lesson we've extracted from this source material. Sometimes warmth and gentleness can achieve way more than strength and force. This perfectly distills our entire explainer into one vital truth. Creating a warm, inviting environment often prompts a voluntary, lasting change that sheer aggressive force could never, ever compel. The wind forced resistance. The sun invited compliance. To wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to reflect on. The next time you find yourself trying to force a stubborn issue, where in your life could you use a little less wind and a little more sun? Whether it's in your personal relationships, your workplace, or just navigating daily frustrations, remember this case study. Sometimes dialing back the force and turning up the warmth is literally the most powerful move you can make. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this changes